The giant killer is here, the Yamaha RZ350, a tiny outlaw that humiliated giants, shredded expectations, and changed the game forever. Today we're diving into the story of how this little rebel left monsters in the dust and why it still has riders talking decades later. Picture this. 1983. The world was buzzing with arcade games. Blockbuster movies like Return of the Jedi ruled theaters, and pop culture was exploding with neon, synth, and rebellion. Amid all that, Yamaha dropped a bomb on the streets that nobody saw coming. A 347 cubic centimeter motorcycle that could embarrass bikes twice its size. The RZ350 wasn't just another bike. It was a revolution wrapped in fiberglass and fury. This thing weighed 371 pounds soaking wet, had an engine smaller than most lawnmowers today. But here's the kicker. It could run quarter miles in 13.19 seconds at 99.22 miles per hour. That's faster than most 750 cubic centimeter four-strokes of the era. How? Two words that changed everything. YPVS technology. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me tell you why this little screamer became the most feared bike on the street. The RZ350 wasn't just Yamaha's sport bike. It was America's final farewell to the two-stroke street bike era. Think about that for a second. This was the last legal two-stroke motorcycle you could buy in the United States, ever. After 1985, it was over. Done. The EPA said no more, and that was it. But before the curtain fell, Yamaha gave us one final masterpiece. A liquid-cooled 347 cubic centimeters. Parallel twin that made 52 horsepower at 8,750 revolutions per minute. Those numbers might sound cute today, but in 1983, that was serious business. Compare that to Yamaha's own 700cc Virago V-twin from the same era. The big cruiser? 55 horsepower. You're telling me a 350 was making almost the same power as a 700? That's not normal. That's not supposed to happen. But the RZ350 didn't care about supposed to. Here's where things get technical, but stay with me because this is the secret sauce. YPVS stands for Yamaha Power Valve System, and it was pure genius. Traditional two-strokes had one massive problem. They were all-or-nothing engines. Below 6,000 RPM, they were dogs. Above 6,000 RPM, they were rockets. The RZ350 changed that game completely. The YPVS used a basic computer and servo motor to electronically adjust the exhaust port timing based on RPM. Think of it as variable valve timing, but for two strokes. At low RPM, the system kept the exhaust ports smaller, giving you torque for street riding. As the revs climbed, it opened them up, unleashing that screaming two-stroke fury. The result, an engine that pulled like a freight train from 2,000 RPM and screamed like a banshee at 9,000. This wasn't just clever engineering. This was revolutionary. Let's talk numbers that matter. The RZ350, 371 pounds wet, 52 horsepower. That's a power-to-weight ratio that made 750cc four-strokes sweat. Those big bikes? They were pushing 500, 600, sometimes 700 pounds. Sure, they had more peak power, but they were carrying around all that extra weight. In a drag race to 90 miles per hour, the little RZ would walk away from bikes with engines twice its size. On a twisty road, forget about it. The RZ could change direction like a hummingbird, while the big bikes were still thinking about turning. It wasn't just fast, it was agile fast. The kind of fast that wins races and breaks hearts. But here's where the story gets dark. The RZ350 earned a nickname that still gives riders chills, the Widowmaker. Why? Because that YPVS system was almost too good. When the power valve opened around 6,000 RPM, the bike didn't just accelerate, it launched. Riders would be cruising along, thinking they had the bike figured out. Then, they'd hit the power band, and suddenly they were holding on for dear life. The front wheel would come up without warning. The bike would surge forward like it got rear-ended by a freight train. Inexperienced riders got thrown off the back. Experienced riders learned to respect the beast. This wasn't gradual power delivery. This was Jekyll and Hyde in motorcycle form. Despite its reputation, the RZ350 was brilliantly engineered. That liquid-cooled engine ran smooth as silk when you kept it in the sweet spot. The 6-speed transmission was perfectly geared to keep you in the power band. The chassis, pure race bike DNA. Yamaha took their road racing knowledge and built it into a street bike. The frame geometry was spot on. Quick steering but not twitchy. Stable at speed but flickable in the corners. The suspension was simple but effective. No fancy adjustments, just good old-fashioned engineering that worked. And those brakes? Twin discs up front, single in the rear, opposed piston calipers that could stop this lightweight rocket on a dime. Here's a piece of history most people don't know. The RZ350 was the first motorcycle ever sold in America with a catalytic converter. Yamaha knew the EPA was coming for two strokes, so they tried to save them with technology. Each muffler had a two-stage catalytic converter. There was even an air induction system to help the converters work more efficiently. The gas tank had a restrictor so you could only use unleaded fuel. There were heat shields everywhere to protect riders from the converter temperatures. When those converters hit 1,650 degrees, a light and beeper would warn you. It was space-age technology for 1983, but it wasn't enough to save the two-stroke, the performance numbers. Let's get back to what really mattered, how fast this thing was. Quarter mile, 13.19 seconds at 99.2, 2 miles per hour. That's not just quick for a 350, that's quick period. Top speed? North of 110 miles per hour, depending on gearing and conditions. But the real magic was in the acceleration. That power-to-weight ratio meant the RZ could out-accelerate bikes with twice the displacement. From a roll, say 40 to 80 miles per hour, the RZ was devastating. While the big bikes were still building steam, the little Yamaha was already gone. The RZ350 wasn't just a street bike with racing pretensions. It was a race bike that happened to be street legal. Kenny Roberts himself endorsed it. His signature was right there on the fairing. The paint schemes? Pure road racing. Red and white, or that iconic yellow and black that screamed factory racer. Club racers loved these bikes. They were light, powerful, and cheap to modify. Many RZ300s and 50s spent their weekends at the track, embarrassing bikes that cost twice as much. The engine was bulletproof when maintained. You could rev it to the moon all day without worrying about bent valves or broken cam chains. That's two-stroke simplicity for you. Look at an RZ350 today, and it still looks modern. That narrow bodywork, the exposed engine, the minimalist tank design. This was how we learned to picture a sport bike. Sharp, aggressive, purposeful. The front fairing with those flat headlights? Iconic. People still remember the first time they saw that face. The three-spoke wheels, the belly pan, the single-seat tail section with the passenger perch slightly raised. Every detail screamed, race bike for the street. Even parked, it looked fast. In motion, it looked like it was breaking the sound barrier. Here's something that might shock you. The RZ350 could be economical. Cycle World reported 43 miles per gallon on their test loop. When ridden gently, some owners saw 50+ miles per gallon. Of course, when you rode it hard, and let's be honest, who could resist? That number dropped to around 30 miles per gallon. But still, a bike that could run 13-second quarter miles and still return decent fuel economy. That was unheard of. The RZ350 didn't just go fast in a straight line. It could corner like it was on rails. That low weight meant you could flick it into turns with just a thought. The chassis was perfectly balanced, not too stiff, not too soft. The geometry was pure genius. Quick enough to be fun, stable enough to be confidence-inspiring. You could lean this bike over until the pegs touched down, and it would hold its line like it was glued to the pavement. Coming out of corners, that YPVS power band would kick in and rocket you toward the next turn. It was addictive. Riders would find themselves taking the long way home just to hit more corners. By 1986, it was over. Yamaha couldn't make the RZ350 meet tightening emission standards. The catalytic converters weren't enough. The EPA had won. Two strokes were done in America. But what a way to go out. The RZ350 proved that displacement isn't everything. That engineering matters more than cubic inches. It showed that a well-designed small bike could embarrass poorly designed big bikes. Today, clean RZ350s are worth serious money. Collectors know what they had. These bikes influenced a generation of sport bike design. That aggressive, minimalist look, it started here. The idea that a small bike could be a serious performance machine? The RZ350 proved it. Modern 300cc sport bikes owe their existence to this little giant killer. Why it still matters. In our world of 200 horsepower superbikes and electronic everything, the RZ350 reminds us of something important. It's not always about having the biggest engine or the most technology. Sometimes it's about getting the fundamentals right. Lightweight, good power, sharp handling. The RZ350 had all three in spades. It was a bike that rewarded skill and punished stupidity. No electronic nannies to save you, no traction control to bail you out. Just you, the bike, and the road. Here's the ultimate proof of the RZ350's greatness. 40 years later, we're still talking about it, still telling stories about the little 350 that could embarrass the big boys, still remembering the sound of that YPVS opening up, the feeling of that power surge, the sight of bigger bikes shrinking in the mirrors. The RZ350 didn't just kill giants. It became a legend. And legends? They never really die. They just wait in garages and museums, ready to remind us what motorcycles used to be like when they had souls. And that's the legend of the RZ350, the ultimate giant killer, small but unstoppable. If you love machines that break the rules, hit that like button, drop a comment with your dream ride, and subscribe. Motorcycle Library is where the myths, the legends, and the machines live forever.